Hey babe, having such a great time, extending the trip by a week, don't wait up, love you. That text hit like a punch to the chest. My wife, gone 3 days on a girls' trip, suddenly decided to stay another week. No call, no warning, just that message. And right then, I knew something was wrong. She never called me babe. Her words felt off, rehearsed, like someone else was typing them. The kitchen went silent. Even the fridge hum stopped. 6 years of marriage, and my gut was screaming louder than any alarm system I'd ever built. So I didn't text back why or who. I sent 7 words that changed everything. Take your time. My attorney finds these stories fascinating. 30 seconds later, her first call, then another, and another. If you've ever seen the truth hiding behind a smile, stay here, because this story only gets darker from here. Subscribe, and don't blink. The calls kept coming, but I set the phone down and looked around my kitchen like it could answer for her. I'm Mark Reynolds, 46, IT security, regular guy with a mortgage and a lawn that grows faster than payday. Most mornings start the same: drip coffee, the smell of cut grass stuck in the garage, a quiet street where the neighbor waves from his mailbox. Home is a simple promise: safety, routine, a place where the dog knows exactly when I'm back from work. 6 years of marriage fit neatly into that rhythm. Saturday grocery runs, Sunday football, weeknights arguing over which light bulbs to buy at Target. Not perfect, just ours. That text cracked the picture frame without shattering the glass. I reread it, tasting metal in my mouth. She never called me babe. She never sounded this far away. The house held its breath, waiting on me to flinch. I didn't. I just said it out loud, steady and low. I know that isn't her voice. So I did what any husband does when the house goes quiet. I went looking for the noise. If cell service was terrible, why were her Instagram stories sharp and steady? Morning latte, sunset by a pool, perfectly filtered smiles. But the tone kept rubbing against the grain. Lydia had warmth, and this read like a brochure. I zoomed in, the way you do when your gut won't leave you alone. In a sliding glass reflection behind her laugh, a shoulder moved. Not one of her friends. A man's frame, easy to spot if you've carried your own tools up a ladder enough times. And on his wrist, a thick watch I'd never seen in our house. Big face, dark strap, the kind you buy when you're reinventing yourself, the kind you show off. I froze the screen and held it closer, light glinting off the glass. Everyone posts a smile. The truth sneaks in through reflections. My thumb hovered over the image. That watch didn't belong in my marriage. Curiosity is one thing, evidence is another. I needed a brick I could stack on top of my doubt. I called the resort, voice steady like I was confirming a dinner reservation. Gave them her name, the dates, even spelled it out, because calm men spell things out. The hold music was cheery, the kind they play while you pretend life isn't cracking. Then the rep came back, polite as a church usher. "I'm sorry, sir. We have no reservation under that name." My hand rested on the counter, knuckles white. I opened the notes app and started a list. Tone mismatch, babe, stories during bad service, reflection of a man, resort says 0 bookings. I'm not a detective, I'm a homeowner. But homeowners keep records, keep receipts. I added the time, the rep's name, the word she used. No. That's the moment the floor stopped feeling soft. It was the first hard edge I could stand on. 0 booking. Facts like company. One truth invites the next. I remembered we'd shared locations for safety, back when safety meant text me when you get there. I checked the map. The dotted circle wasn't anywhere near a resort. It sat over a quiet cul-de-sac on the other side of town. Starter lawns, wide driveways, that new suburb smell. Public records gave me a name: Marcus Webb. A quick search pulled up a polished headshot, grin you could frame on a billboard. Marketing, same city. Looked familiar in the way trouble does. Then LinkedIn confirmed the part my stomach already knew. The company where Lydia had been freelancing these last months. Late meetings, weekend strategy sessions. I stared at the screen while the AC kicked on. The dots weren't dots anymore. They were a line, and it led straight to someone's front door. Same company, same city, same timeline. That's when I stopped wondering whether I was right and started planning what to do with it. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. The new gym routine, the dresses that didn't match our calendar, the coy client calls taken on the patio like the neighbors were the problem. It wasn't a single thunderclap, it was a slow storm rolling in on a Sunday afternoon. My phone lit up with her name again. I answered, voice calm enough to set a glass on. She led with outrage, like that would scare the facts away. You're being paranoid. I let her run the tape for a minute, then I cut it clean. With who? Silence. Not a dropped call, just the kind of silence that happens when someone reaches for a lie and can't find a clean one. I looked out at my yard, the mower lines still crisp from last weekend, a life I took care of with my own hands. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I asked the only question that mattered. With who? And I waited. That silence from P6 stretched until she finally exhaled and grabbed the first excuse in reach. Work friends, she said, quick and careless, like a kid hiding candy behind her back. I kept my voice level. From work? That's funny. Last week you said it was a high school reunion. A beat. Then another. You can hear thinking over the phone when someone's story hits a curb. She tried to patch it. Well, some work friends were invited. And the sentence folded in the middle. I didn't fill the gap. I let it breathe. Men learn this in garages and on fishing boats. You don't fix an engine while it's still turning. You let it die, then you listen for what broke. Her words sputtered, stalled, then stopped. The quiet was so thick I could hear the AC kick on. I pictured her blinking, recalculating. She'd expected me to yell. I didn't. I just waited, and the waiting did more damage than any argument. I kept it simple, the way you stack lumber when you know a storm's coming. Your resort has no booking, your stories run on perfect signal, and your location, it's not anywhere near a resort. She whispered like the phone might betray her. You're tracking me? I looked at the dot on my screen and thought about the night we turned this on. The text me when you get there promise that felt like care, not control. You shared it for safety, I said, steady. I'm making sure we're safe from lies. The word hung there, safety, and shifted its weight. She tried to pull it back to fear, but it stayed planted in fact. That's the thing about grown men. We don't need drama to feel strong. We need clarity. And right then, clarity chose a side. The calls, the tone, the map. They weren't guesses anymore. They were anchors. I could feel the balance tip. She could feel it too. Her breath went thin. She scrambled for a new story, grabbed one off the shelf. One of the girls is going through a bad divorce, she said. We're staying at her friend's place. I couldn't say anything, privacy, safety. It sounded noble until it needed a name. What's her name? I asked. The line crackled with nothing. I promised, she said, small. My hand didn't shake. Then let me help. Marcus Webb. The way she inhaled made the phone feel smaller. How do you know that name? Her voice wasn't angry, it was scared, like she'd just realized the lie had an address. I stared at the map dot parked on his cul-de-sac and thought about Saturday afternoons I'd spent edging my lawn while she took client calls. Men know the difference between a tool and a toy. We know the difference between an explanation and a cover story. I didn't raise the volume. I raised the truth. And when you say the right name, the room changes. She fired back the oldest smokescreen in the book. It's complicated. Then the new age polish. We have an authentic connection. I almost laughed, but I didn't give her that gift. Authentic lies, I said, and the words landed hard, because simple words do that. She pivoted, fast and reckless, like slamming the gear shift without a clutch. I want a divorce. There it was. The nuclear button said like a dare. In her head, she was seizing control, painting herself decisive and brave. But men my age know this script. The decision shows up only after the truth does. I let the word hang. Divorce. Not a threat. A statement. Not a rescue. A route. The funny thing about ultimatums? They look strong until someone doesn't flinch. I looked at the clock over my sink and felt my pulse slow down. She thought she'd flipped the switch. She had. just not the one she meant. Not necessary, I said, calm as a clean countertop. Enjoy your trip. And I ended the call. No speech, no bargaining. Just a click that sounded louder than any shout. I put the phone face down and pulled my planner from the drawer, the old school kind with paper you can crease when you mean it. Monday morning had a blank square waiting for a name and an address. I wrote both. David Morrison, downtown. Men fix what's broken by starting with what's certain. Time, place, signature. I checked the list I'd built. Tone mismatch, babe, resort, no, stories with reflections, map, dot in a cul-de-sac, and now her own word, divorce. Each line felt like a stud in a wall I could lean on. The house seemed to exhale, like it approved. I rinsed my coffee mug, set it upside down to dry, and felt the tilt of the day change. No more guessing, no more chasing. Next move, counsel up. The next square on my planner came fast. Monday, downtown, David Morrison. His office smelled like paper and decisions. Certificates lined the wall, but it was the empty legal pad on his desk that settled me. Room for facts, not noise. I laid it all out. The text, the resort's no booking, the reflection in the glass, the map dot on a quiet cul-de-sac, the name that changed the room, Marcus Webb. He didn't rush. He underlined dates, circled times, drew a clean line down the page. Then I slid over the prenup, signed, initialed, archived. He read the important parts, nodded once. "You've been calm," he said. "Calm helps." He tapped the stack of screenshots and notes, then leaned back. "Your case is strong." 4 words that moved the weight off my chest and back onto the table where it belonged. Not a victory, a plan. For the first time in days, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. Preparation has a rhythm, and men my age know it. You don't fix the roof in a storm, you check the beams in the sun. We walked through my finances like a home inspection. The house? Bought before the marriage, title in my name. Retirement accounts? Separate. Savings? Documented. He asked about joint accounts. I gave him balances and statements. He asked about debts. I laid out the numbers the way you line up sockets in a tray. Nothing flashy, just solid. We talked timelines, disclosures, next steps. He kept the pen moving, connecting the dots until the picture was obvious. "We can file Monday," he said, low and certain, like a foreman signing off on a job done right. There it was. A date, a path, a deadline. I shook his hand and felt the difference between anger and resolve. Anger wants noise. Resolve wants a calendar. I walked out into the Texas heat feeling lighter, like I'd tightened every bolt I could reach. Resolve met me at the garage keypad. I punched in a new code, something simple I could still tap half asleep. The door hummed, then shut like a line being drawn. I called a locksmith, a local guy with forearms like fence posts, and we changed the front and back locks while the afternoon sun slid across the driveway. No drama, just maintenance. Inside, I pulled out 2 suitcases and folded her things carefully. The black dress she wore to our anniversary dinner, the gym outfits she said were for self-care, the perfume that never smelled like home to me. I didn't throw or tear, I stacked. Shirts, shoes, chargers, the little glass tray where she used to drop her rings. When I zipped the last bag, the house sounded new, not empty, just honest. I set both suitcases by the front door, handles facing out, ready for whoever they belonged to now. 2 silent witnesses to a promise that had ended. The phone buzzed as the locksmith's van pulled away. The script changed in real time. First, the fire. I was cruel, paranoid, controlling. Then the smoke thinned. I was distant, distracted, never around. Then came the soft sell, the line people use when they've burned their own bridge. I deserve to be happy. I stood in the doorway, looked at the 2 suitcases, and let the words pass like a summer storm. Another ping. This is my house too. I caught myself smiling. Not mean, just done. I typed carefully, like tightening the last screw. Technically, no. I added nothing else. I didn't explain mortgage dates or title documents or the part where respect is also paperwork. Men know this feeling, the quiet satisfaction of a job measured twice and cut once. The messages kept trying new angles. I stopped giving them purchase. The locks were changed, the codes were set, and for the first time, the boundaries held. Saturday came early and loud. A car door slammed, then fists on wood. I watched through the peephole long enough to calm my breathing, then opened up. She tried her key first. It turned air. Her eyes hit the suitcases like a verdict. I didn't step aside. I didn't step forward. I held the line like a good doorframe does. "Open this," she said. "You can't do this." I kept my voice even. "You said you wanted a divorce. You chose your new life. I'm helping you move into it." She reached for anger, then tears, then legal words she didn't understand. I didn't argue any of them. I handed her the handles and let the silence say what needed saying. Choices have weight. She stared past me into the house that was no longer ours, then back at the driveway where a new story was idling. The moment stretched, then snapped. She took the bags. The door clicked shut, firm and final. Boundaries, honored. The door had barely latched before the threats started through it. "This is illegal," she snapped, voice sharp enough to scratch paint. I leaned my forehead against the wood, steadied my tone, and spoke like a man reading a receipt. "The deed's in my name. Purchased before the marriage. Title's clean." I didn't raise my voice. I raised the facts. She fired back with phrases she'd half heard on TV law dramas. I answered with dates, signatures, county records, plain English, no drama. "You learn this as a homeowner. Paperwork is louder than shouting." "If you think I'm wrong," I said, hand on the deadbolt, "consult an attorney. Happy to let them review the documents." The hall went quiet except for our breathing. Power isn't volume, it's clarity. On the other side of the door, I could feel her recalculating, looking for a lever that wasn't there. The threats thinned, then stopped. For the first time all week, the balance shifted. She wasn't in control anymore. When her voice returned, it came back smaller, carrying tears like a peace flag. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." I let the words land and sit, no rush to mop them up. Sorry is a word folks use when the consequence finally shows up. I opened the door just wide enough to see her eyes. "If I hadn't found out," I asked, "how long would it have gone on?" She blinked, searching the ground for an answer that wouldn't exist tomorrow. I don't know." There it was, the only honest sentence of the week. My jaw unclenched. "You're not sorry," I said, even. "You're sorry you got caught." It wasn't cruel. It was accurate. The truth has a way of clearing a room. I watched the fight drain from her shoulders, the same way a storm loses its thunder once it runs out of sky. She had tears. I had boundaries. But that's not the part that broke me. This is. Because after the lie, after the calm, comes the cleanup. She stepped back, gathered herself, and walked to her car without another word. The driveway swallowed the sound of her tires, leaving the house empty and honest. I headed for the kitchen. Coffee's a simple ritual, but men know the right ritual steadies the hands. I measured grounds by feel, not rage. Water, click, a hum that's steadier than a heartbeat. The mug warmed my palms while the morning cooled off inside me. Efficiency beats emotion. That's not lack of feeling. It's respect for damage control. I rinsed the bitter from my mouth, looked at the suits by the door, and let the silence stretch without turning it into a speech. The dog settled at my feet like he'd been waiting for this calm all along. For the first time in days, the house didn't flinch. Neither did I. The plan was simple. Keep the records, keep the locks, keep my center. The surprising part wasn't the quiet. It was how good it felt. Good quiet doesn't last when someone needs a crowd. My phone lit up with familiar names. My sister, an old friend, even my neighbor from across the cul-de-sac. Lydia moved fast. The victim's voice, brand new coat. I was controlling, paranoid, dangerous. The story spread faster than Wi-Fi, until I dropped 3 screenshots. Then everything slowed. No speeches, no anger, just proof. And proof doesn't shout, it rearranges the room. By afternoon, her mother called, voice tight with offense and love in equal parts. "She says you overreacted," she began, building a soft landing for a hard story. I kept my voice level. I'm texting you something. I sent the Instagram story, the balcony view, the sliding glass reflection, the shape of a man moving behind her, and that heavy watch face catching light like a flare. The line went quiet long enough for me to hear my own breath in the speaker. There has to be an explanation, she said finally, like a mother reaching for a blanket in a house already on fire. There is, I answered. It's just not the one you want. Manipulation likes fog. Pictures are clear weather. I didn't push, didn't gloat. I let her sit with the image the way I had, staring at the truth that doesn't blink or apologize. When she exhaled, it sounded older. I understand. The call ended. The narrative did too. After that call with her mother, the ripple hit our friends. The first texts came soft. Man, this is rough. Maybe give it time. Then I sent the same 3 pieces I'd sent my sister. No commentary, just the resort's no booking, the reflection shot, and the map pin sitting on a cul-de-sac that wasn't ours. The tone changed. Pity turned into questions. Wait, so where was she actually staying? Who's the guy? My phone buzzed less with advice and more with quiet apologies. Guys I'd grilled with on Sundays stopped trying to fix my feelings and started reading the timestamps. That's what evidence does. It doesn't yell. It rearranges furniture. I didn't swing at anyone. I didn't take a victory lap. I just let the documents breathe. Within a day, the whispers stopped sounding like I'd lost my mind and started sounding like she'd lost the plot. You could feel the room flip. The story wasn't hers anymore. The crowd moved to the side of the facts. Late afternoon, a number I didn't recognize flashed across my screen. I almost let it go to voicemail, then answered. Mark, this is Rebecca Webb. The name carried its own weight. Her voice was measured, like someone who'd been living with glass underfoot. We need to talk, she said, because that house your wife's been posting from, that's still my house. The words landed like a gavel. Suddenly, this wasn't just my broken promise. It was hers too, and his. We compared notes like 2 neighbors after a storm, pointing at the same missing shingles. She'd been told late nights at the office. I'd been told girls' trip. Same playbook, different audience. There's a moment when strangers stop being strangers because the truth introduced them. This was that moment. I have documents, she said. Spending, patterns, dates. I stared at the suitcases still by my door and felt something new. Not anger, not relief. Alignment. 2 people, same wound. That's not gossip, that's an alliance. Rebecca didn't bluff. 10 minutes later, my inbox filled with what men trust more than speeches. Receipts. Restaurants across town on nights she'd claimed strategy sessions. A hotel 2 months back when I thought she was at a late client dinner. A jewelry store charge the week before the girls' trip, wrapped in gift paper that never showed up at my house. She sent screenshots marked in red. Dates, charges, rooms. Every lie had a receipt. And for the first time, the puzzle stopped fighting back. I laid her list next to mine. The reflection photo, the resort's no, the location dot, and the lines drew themselves. Not chaos, a pattern. And when patterns appear, truth doesn't hide. It organizes. I spent that evening doing what men do best when the world has tilted. I organized. Screenshots into folders, locations labeled with dates, her posts saved, metadata intact. I printed the resort email, stapled it to my notes, slid Rebecca's receipts into clear sleeves. If you've ever fixed a fence line, you know the comfort of posts set straight. This felt like that. By the time I closed the binder, it had a spine that could stand on its own. Not a scrapbook, a case file. I wrote a simple cover page for my attorney. Timeline of events, evidence index, witnesses. The dog snored at my feet while the printer hummed a low, steady approval. When I snapped the binder shut, it sounded final. I didn't need speeches. I didn't need revenge. I needed this weight to move from my chest to a stack of paper with tabs. It did. And once your pain has page numbers, you're not lost in it anymore. You're leading it somewhere. When you finish building the file, you expect peace. But the next morning, the war knocked again, just dressed in legal paper. Morning brought a call from Morrison. Her attorney reached out, he said, voice calm like a mechanic who's seen every busted part before. They're alleging emotional distress and asking for spousal support. I stared at the binder I'd just built and actually laughed. Not mean, just amazed at the nerve. "They can ask," I said. He cleared his throat, smiling through it. "We have a prenup, Mark. Signed. Clear. And, well, the affair isn't helping her side. Men understand leverage. We use it every time we haul something heavy with a 2x4. That prenup was a fulcrum, and the evidence was the weight doing the work." The irony wrote itself. Cheat your way out the door, then send the bill to the man you lied to. He didn't waste my time with drama. "We'll respond," he said, "under the agreement." I looked at the suitcases, the new locks, the steady dog, and felt the quiet settle again. Some storms you outlast. Some you outprepare. This one? Both. The next move from their side was predictable. If you can't beat the evidence, smear the man holding it. They painted me with anger issues, pointing at the changed locks like they'd found a smoking gun. I didn't bite. I'd changed codes and keys the way any homeowner secures a property, with receipts, not rage. Morrison reminded me, "Allegations make headlines, documents win hearings." So we stacked ours. Title history, locksmith invoice, the prenup, the screenshots, the resort's no booking. I've learned this from busted engines and tax season. Feelings don't tighten bolts. Facts do. When their email tried to spin a safety measure into abuse, I read it twice, then let it go. The court isn't a group chat. It doesn't care who speaks louder. It cares who shows up with proof. I looked at the binder on my table and felt the knot in my chest loosen. I didn't need to win the argument. Facts will win in court. That night, I opened an old email folder I hadn't touched in years. Back when we were soft with each other. Back when home felt like a place we were building, not a stage set for photos. Little notes about grocery lists that turned into love you, drive safe, jokes from Tuesday lunches, plans for weekends that never needed to impress anyone. Men don't talk much about belonging, but we know it when we feel it, like finding your chair after a long day. As I scrolled, I saw where the tone changed. Fewer small kindnesses, more performance, less us, more busy. The drift didn't start this week. It started in 100 little moments I shrugged off because I wanted the picture to stay intact. I'm not proud of that. I missed signs that didn't fit the story I liked. Owning that hurt, but it was clean pain. I sat back in my chair and looked at the framed photo on the shelf. Our first housewarming. She's holding a paintbrush, streak of white on her cheek, laughing at something I'd said about never painting again. The camera caught it just before she turned, before everything got edited into smiles. For a second, the air smelled like that summer. Fresh walls, new keys, hope that didn't know what time could do. I didn't cry. Men my age don't cry at ghosts. We study them. I placed the photo face down on the desk. Not anger, acknowledgement. That's the part no one posts online. The quiet moment when memory shifts from proof of love to evidence of distance. Memory does what it wants, but that backyard BBQ came back clear. Hot dogs snapping on the grill, neighbors laughing, kids turning the sprinkler into a slip and slide. I remember handing Lydia a plate and watching her step 2 feet away to frame the perfect life shot. Angled beer bottle, sun flare just so, smile stretched tight. The post got hearts. The moment didn't. I stood there with a spatula and felt like a prop in my own yard. That's the thing about image. It's loud, shiny, and never hungry. Warmth, on the other hand, is messy. It smells like charcoal and mustard and burnt buns you eat anyway. I wasn't angry, just displaced. Like someone had turned our life into a brochure for people we didn't know. That day I laughed it off, flipped another burger, and pretended not to notice. Tonight, I let the truth say it plain. The picture looked good because the distance was edited out. Close to midnight, I started where most men start when we need to think, with our hands. I cleaned the bedroom slow, drawer by drawer. The couple things, matching frames, the photo from our first road trip, the mug that said Mrs., went into a box. Not broken, not burned, just gone. My shirts hung with space between them again. My boots lined up straight. I switched on the warm lamp by the dresser, and the light didn't have to fight for a place to land. This wasn't revenge, it was repair. I needed the room to tell the truth when I walked into it. No more ghosts, no more placeholders. I looked around and felt something I hadn't felt since before all the performance and panic. Ease. I'm reclaiming my space, I said to the quiet, and it sounded right. The house answered back in its language. No creaks, no drafts, just a steady hum that said, "You can sleep here." Morning brought a new mask from her feed. Self-care. A latte, a quote about healing, a sunlit gym mirror. The comments came fast, some cheering, some side-eye. I didn't type a word. When you've got the receipts, you don't argue with captions. But buried in one clip was another gift to the timeline. A familiar balcony view, a shadow slide past the glass, a glimpse of that same heavy watch catching light like a lighthouse. I saved it the second it appeared. 30 minutes later, the post vanished. That didn't matter. The internet forgets slower than people do. Countdown or not, the file was already in my folder with a timestamp it would never shake. Men my age know this rhythm. Measure twice, cut once, keep the offcuts. She was curating a brand. I was building a case. And when those two collide, the brand blinks first. I closed the laptop, poured fresh coffee, and let the facts keep breathing. The next tremor didn't come from me, it came from Rebecca. She posted an anonymous status, no tags, no names, just a clean sentence with teeth. A mistress is living in my house. 2 photos followed, the same balcony angle I'd seen, the same deck rail, the same skyline at dusk. She didn't have to say who. People in this city can connect dots faster than gossip travels. Comments stacked up like folding chairs. Is this? Wait, I've seen that view. Screenshots bounced from group chats to group texts. The map in my head matched the mouths in my phone. The beauty of show don't name is that it respects the truth enough to let it walk on its own. By dinner, everyone who needed to understand, understood. Lydia's circle went quiet, then prickly, then suddenly busy with unrelated posts. Denial gets loud when recognition walks in. I didn't join the thread. I didn't need to. The room turned without me. Silence from a guilty man isn't noble. It's tactical. Marcus stopped taking Rebecca's calls, then blocked her on 2 apps, then emailed from a burner about space. She responded like a grown-up, through counsel. I saw the screenshots, her lawyer looping his in, a short chain that ended with numbers and dates. Then came the email that always changes the temperature, marital assets, provisional orders, and a line that might as well be a verdict, subject to equal division. Half. The word doesn't shout. It weighs. The deck, the furniture, the accounts with their careful commas, suddenly all measured by law, not mood. That's the payoff to bad choices, not rage, arithmetic. Rebecca didn't crow. She sent me a picture of the notice like a neighbor showing storm damage. There it is. I stared at the screen and felt a quiet kind of justice. You can run from truth. You can't outrun math. And math doesn't care who posted the prettier picture. When Lydia asked to meet, I picked a coffee shop with windows, cameras, and a line that never stops moving. Daylight does what it does. Keeps things honest. I got there early, sat with my back to a wall, and watched people carry cups like small anchors. She arrived in a rush of perfume and apology, arms half open like the past could be hugged into behaving. I kept my hands on the table. No touch, no confusion. We'd tried feelings. We were here for facts. I just want to talk, she said, sitting too close. I slid my chair back the length of a receipt. We will, calmly. Control the bistro, control the script. She glanced at the camera above the pastry case, clocked the witnesses, and the performance lost its stage. We talked timeline, not memories. Logistics, not longing. When she reached for my wrist, I folded my hands and let the moment pass. The climax wasn't dramatic. It was disciplined. She led with the line I knew was coming. You neglected me, Mark. I let it sit, then picked it apart like a loose knot. You felt alone, so you chose late meetings, then you chose secret calls, then you chose a week at another man's house. Those aren't accidents, Lydia. Those are decisions. She tried to reframe it as timing, as stress, as fate. I kept circling back to verbs. Booked, drove, stayed, posted. The simplest words do the sharpest work when you're cutting lies from truth. Her eyes flicked to the door, then down to her cup, then up to the camera. That's when the air in the room changed. You can't out-talk sequence. It's a chain you built yourself. I wasn't cruel, just clear. You wanted comfort, I said, so you built a story that gave it to you. but stories don't erase choices. The sentence landed and didn't bounce. She had nothing to hand back. I stood first. Men my age know, you end clean. I set cash under the saucer and left the receipt in plain view, the date and time a stamp nobody can argue with. Email only, I said, and she nodded like she'd heard a judge. Outside, the Texas sun made everything honest again. I paused near the door, aimed my phone at the storefront, wide shot, crowd, clock on the wall visible through glass, and saved it. Not paranoia, prudence. An audit trail is for lawyers and for peace of mind. I walked to my truck without looking back. The engine turned over on the first try, steady and sure, like a life that remembered how to run. On the drive home, I felt my pulse slow to match the lane lines. No shouting, no dramatic exit, just documentation and distance. In a week full of noise, the quietest move was the strongest one. Leave proof, not smoke. Then go home. After the coffee shop, I drove straight to Morrison's office. No detours, no music. He already had my binder open, tabs like mile markers down the side. We walked through it again, slow and clean. Texts, photos, location pings, receipts, the prenup. He added witness names to a legal pad, my sister, the front desk rep at the resort, Rebecca, with neat checkboxes next to each. If they want drama, let them bring it, he said. We'll bring order. He clicked through his calendar while I watched the second hand on his wall clock carve the room into little slices of certainty. Filing windows clear, he said. Judges in, clerks moving fast. He capped the pen and looked up like a foreman signing off on a roof before the rain. Monday, 9:00 a.m. The words felt like a countdown you can finally trust. Not a threat. A time. I walked out into the late sun and felt the deadline clip to my spine. Direction, discipline, done. On the drive home, I did the call I'd been putting off. Hey, Mom. You can hide a lot of things from a mother. Weight in your voice isn't one of them. I told her the truth with no varnish. What Lydia did, what I found, what comes next. I didn't throw stones. I stacked facts. I'm okay, I said. I've got a good lawyer. I'm sleeping. I'm eating. The house is locked. I'm safe. She breathed out like she'd been underwater. Then I heard it. Quiet crying. Not the broken kind, the relieved kind. I've been praying, she said soft. I didn't know how to help. I told her she just did. Men don't always say it out loud, but that one sentence matters. Mom, I'm fine. Don't worry. The call ended without promises, just peace. I sat in the driveway for a minute, engine ticking, and let the warmth of that relief settle in my chest. Family isn't a speech. It's the net that holds. The next morning I hit the gym before sunrise. No hero lifts, just basics. Rower, presses, a walk that turned into a run when the playlist found its feet. Sweat turns noise into steam. It leaves through the skin and takes the buzzing with it. In the headphones, a podcast voice talked about boundaries like they were fences you maintain, not walls you weaponize. Respect is a choice, the host said, not a slogan, an instruction. I thought about every time I'd rounded off a hard truth because I wanted the picture to stay pretty. I thought about the locks, the ledger, the Monday deadline. Men fix what they measure, and the more I moved, the more I felt measured again, in control, not controlling. I left the gym lighter, and not just in pounds. The mirror didn't show a victim or a saint. It showed a man who'd stopped negotiating with disrespect. That's not swagger. That's alignment. And alignment makes you quiet and strong. Back home, I opened the safe and did what my job trained me to do: sort, label, verify. Birth certificate, title, insurance, the prenup with signatures that suddenly meant more than vows had. I scanned and backed everything up to the cloud, mirrored to a drive, then wrote down passwords in a sealed envelope for my own future sanity. It wasn't paranoia, it was housekeeping for a life. The printer hummed steady as a heartbeat while I built a simple index. Accounts, dates, contacts, evidence list. I slid the most important papers into fireproof sleeves and shut the safe with a click that sounded like closure. Work and home don't have to bleed into each other, but sometimes the lesson crosses over clean. In security, we say, Logs tell the truth when memories won't. I looked at the neat stack on the desk, breathed out, and let the line write itself in my head. People lie. Logs don't. That's not cynical. That's how you stay grounded. Late morning, my work inbox pinged. HR. I braced for paperwork. Instead, I got a paragraph about leadership under pressure, focus, clean deliverables, the way our last incident response ran smoother than any in a year. We'd like to discuss a promotion, it ended. I leaned back and let it sink in. Turns out when you stop bleeding attention into chaos, you get sharper everywhere else. Calls answered on this first ring, tickets closed without a second guess, meetings that ended on time because I brought a plan and a spine. I wasn't chasing fires, I was building exits before they started. I wrote back a steady, happy to talk, closed the laptop, and felt something I hadn't felt since before the lies. Pride that didn't need applause. Men don't live on titles, but respect, especially self-respect, feeds you. That email didn't fix my life. It confirmed it was pointed the right way, and pointing the right way is how you climb. The HR email still warm in my inbox when her message buzzed through. We can fix this. I stared at the words like a leaky faucet you've already shut off at the main. I typed slow, no heat, just math. Fix equals truth plus consequences. Not therapy as costume. Not a weekend workshop that launders what happened into growth. I told her the loop was over. No more confess, cry, reset, repeat. If you cut the same path through the same yard, you don't get a new trail. You get a rut. She tried another pass at, we owe it to our history, and I let the sentence fade right where it belonged, behind us. Boundaries are how grown men protect the good that's left. I wasn't punishing, I was preventing. No couples counseling, I added. No soft landing. The climax was a quiet refusal that didn't blink. She wanted a stage for feelings. I needed a record for court, and a life that doesn't loop back to lies. Right on cue, Rebecca sent another package, bank statements with clean highlights, dates lined up like fence posts. She CC'd both lawyers, no drama, no editorial, just see attached. I replied with my index and screenshots, included Morrison, and watched two paper streams braid into one strong current. This wasn't revenge, it was alignment. Two adults insisting on daylight. We agreed on a simple protocol: share relevant documents, route all contact through counsel, keep the story straight because it already is. Her attorney flagged expenditures that count as misuse of marital assets. Mine tied them to my timeline. It wasn't a high five, it was a handshake. The win-win wasn't about hurting them. It was about not letting either of us get buried alone. By afternoon, our fronts matched. Facts, dates, witnesses. The air felt different when you know you're not walking into court solo. The climax wasn't loud. It was the click of two binders closing at the same time. A day later, she showed up at my office lobby with a storm for an audience. Security called me down. She was crying before I hit the last step, the kind that begs the room to vote. People glanced over their screens. "You're ruining my life," she said. Then, like she forgot the script, "I love him." The room went still. The admission hung in fluorescent light while the receptionist stopped typing. I didn't give a speech. "Then go be with him," I said, calm enough for the cameras to catch it clean. You could feel the legal ground tilt under her feet. Confession is an odd thing. It doesn't sound like a weapon until it's on record. She reached for my sleeve. I kept my hands at my sides, eyes on security. This wasn't a scene. It was evidence. The climax wrote itself. A public, "I love him," to match the private lies. She left in a swirl of perfume and whispers. I went back to work. Word travels weird inside an office. It doesn't sprint, it seeps. By lunch, people weren't asking me what happened. They were saying they'd seen it. Lydia's image, curated smiles and self-care hashtags, hit the wall of witnesses and bounced. A vendor postponed a meeting she'd set. A partner asked to reschedule her pitch. Doors didn't slam, they just didn't open. That's the thing about consequences. They're not always sirens. Sometimes they're calendars that stop calling. I didn't celebrate any of it. I kept my head down, answered tickets, sent clean emails, and let the rumor mill do what rumor mills do when the truth is already heavier. Middle-aged men know this rhythm. You don't have to swing the hammer when gravity's doing the work. The climax wasn't revenge, it was immediate social math. Trust minus evidence equals distance. By end of day, the building had decided something on its own. Not because I screamed it, because it saw. That evening, the house finally sounded like a house. The dishwasher thumped a steady rhythm. The AC whispered through the vents. The dog curled into his old spot like nothing had happened. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands wrapped around a warm mug and breathed all the way out. No phones lighting up, no doors knocking, no puzzles to solve before bed. Just the low, honest hum of a place that isn't lying to you. Men don't always get language for this kind of peace, but we recognize it when it lands, like pulling into your driveway after a long road trip and knowing you don't have to leave again tomorrow. I watched the little red light on the dishwasher blink, 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 and felt my shoulders drop an inch. The climax wasn't fireworks. It was silence doing its job. For the first time in months, I wasn't guarding the night. I was in it, and it held. The quiet night didn't last long. Next morning, her attorney called with a voice like soft carpet. "We're hoping to resolve this amicably," he said, then floated a couple of temporary ideas. Shared access, a cooling-off arrangement, something about maintaining appearances on social media. I listened without interrupting, pen capped, calendar open. Men my age know this tone. It's the one you use when you want to move the goalposts without admitting you did. When he paused for agreement, I gave him 4 words you can build a house on. Follow the prenup. No edge, no lecture, just the contract we both signed when love was easy and minds were clear. He tried to reopen the door with phrases like reasonable compromise and short-term flexibility. I brought him back to the document, dates, clauses, signatures. Feelings aren't admissible, paper is. The call ended polite and pointless, which was the point. We weren't negotiating emotions. We were executing terms, and terms don't blink. Not an hour later, a text from an unknown number showed up like a bad idea at last call. "It's Marcus. Let's talk man to man." That phrase has never fixed anything. I stared at it long enough to remember every time a private chat was really a trap. I answered with the only move that keeps the board clean. Talk to the attorneys. He fired back with pride and posture. No lawyers, just 2 guys settling it. That's how manipulation tries to breathe. Off the record, out of the light. I didn't give it air. "Counsel only," I replied, and silenced the thread. Men think control means volume. It doesn't. Control means keeping the meeting where the cameras are, the clocks are, and the minutes get written down. He didn't like it. He didn't have to. The climax wasn't a showdown in a parking lot. It was a boundary that held. And when boundaries hold, stories can't be rewritten after the fact. That evening, Rebecca pinged me with another small hammer. She'd been combing old photos and found what cheaters always forget. Backgrounds keep receipts. Lydia had posted girls' night shots months back, tight crops, warm filters. But a mirror in the corner caught a male shoulder, and behind a wineglass stem, the edge of that same heavy watch. Rebecca overlaid timestamps with a credit card charge for a late dinner 2 blocks away. Same night, same hour, same man hiding where the crop line thought it was safe. It wasn't detective work. It was housekeeping with a sharper eye. We stacked it next to the hotel receipt, the balcony reflection, the resort's no booking, and the location pin sitting stubborn on his street. The puzzle didn't fight us anymore. It clicked. Forensic storytelling isn't about big reveals. It's about patient ones. The climax wasn't a gasp. It was a line that finally drew itself straight, from lie to lie, without missing a step. Monday came like a deadline you respect. I met Morrison at this courthouse, binder under my arm, the kind of weight that feels right where it is. We filed. The clerk stamped. The seal hit the page with a sound that belonged in a different genre than arguing. Administrative, official, final. An email followed before we cleared the steps. Case number assigned, service in motion, calendar to follow. It read like closure formatted into paragraphs. There were no speeches, no dramatic exits, just steel doors, numbered windows, and a process that doesn't care who cried harder. I walked out into the sun feeling taller, not because I'd won anything yet, but because the game had moved off rumor and onto record. In a week of spinning plates, this was the table they now had to spin on. The climax was simple and perfect. The story wasn't ours to debate anymore. It lived on paper, under seal. And paper doesn't pick sides. It keeps them. Once the filing went through, the noise dropped like a power cut. Lydia went quiet for days. No love quotes, no gym mirrors, no healing journey. Marcus was busy where math lives. Divorce papers, asset lists, lawyers with calendars colder than concrete. Social media, once their stage, turned on them with that slow, relentless pressure only silence can give. Comments that used to clap now asked questions. DMs that once fawned now forwarded screenshots. I didn't gloat. I watered the lawn, answered emails, and slept. Consequences aren't cinematic. They're cumulative. They pile up in empty inboxes and meetings that never get scheduled. Late one night, I scrolled out of habit and realized there was nothing new to see. No crisis, no spin, just a blank where the performance used to be. The climax wasn't loud. It was loneliness closing in on people who built their world out of applause. When the clapping stops, the room tells the truth, and it gets very, very quiet. After the quiet came the need to make the place honest. I cleared a Saturday and started with a roller and a gallon that said warm sand on the label. The first stroke covered more than paint. It covered the stale air of arguments I didn't want to replay. I cut clean lines around outlets, pulled blue tape slow, then stepped back. The room breathed. New curtains went up, heavier, calmer, moving like held breath when the AC kicked in. I swapped the old pendant light for a simple matte fixture and watched it throw a steady circle on the table where chaos used to sit. I didn't play music, just the ladder creak, the clink of screws in a dish, the dog's tags tapping the floor. A home doesn't fix you, but it meets you halfway when you fix it back. I wiped my hands on a rag, looked across that soft, even wall, and said it out loud, certain, this is my home again. You can't measure a man's recovery by paperwork alone. You measure it in the backyard, with folding chairs and cold beer, and a grill that runs a little hot on one side. Saturday evening, my neighbors wandered over like they always had. No pity in their eyes, just presence. We talked weather, the Longhorns, someone's leaky sprinkler head. Eventually, one of the guys, the quiet one who never says anything he doesn't mean, clinked his bottle against mine. Proud of how you handled it, he said. No speech, no group hug, just a sentence that lands where a man keeps his backbone. I nodded, flipped the burgers, handed a kid an extra napkin, and let the small talk do what small talk does. Prove the world still works. Respect doesn't arrive with trumpets. It returns like an old friend who knows the back gate code. I took a bite, laughed at a dumb joke, and felt something settle back into place. I was back among my people. Monday morning brought an email from Morrison. Simple subject line, heavier than it looked. Final signing. Time, address, 2 attachments. I skimmed what I'd already read 100 times, then set a pen beside my keys like a tool laid out for a job. At the office, the conference room smelled like fresh paper and carpet glue. Morrison slid the documents across, his finger marking where the lines waited. Names, dates, case number at the top like mile marker signs. There's a ceremony to this part. No music, just the scratch of a pen that says what words couldn't. I wrote my name slow, not dramatic, just deliberate, like tightening the last bolt on a fence you rebuilt yourself. He gathered the pages, checked the seals, nodded once. The door closed behind us with that soft, final hush buildings make when they've seen this 1,000 times. On the sidewalk, the sun felt clean. The file was closed. So was the part of me that kept looking back. You learn your healing when Target feels like church. I wandered the aisles on a quiet weeknight, trash bags, light bulbs, a new set of towels that didn't have a story attached. The radio floated a country song about second chances and long roads home. Fluorescence made the floor shine like fresh rain. I caught my reflection in a stainless steel toaster and didn't look tired for the first time in months. Not younger, lighter. I tossed a cast iron skillet into the cart because men our age know you keep one good pan for the rest of your life. A clerk rang me up with a smile that didn't know my week, and that was part of the blessing. In the auto door's glass, I saw a man who'd stopped apologizing to himself. The bags were simple, the night was simple, and simplicity felt like luxury. In the parking lot's warm light, I breathed deep and named it without ceremony. Acceptance. This is me, moving forward. I turned a corner near Home Goods, and there she was, holding a basket like a shield. "Can we talk?" Lydia asked, voice soft enough to stir old reflexes. I kept the cart between us, not mean, measured, public place, public tone. "We are talking," I said. She reached for history, vacations, holidays, the version of us that lived in photos. I didn't bend it into a fight. "You made choices," I said, steady. "I handled consequences." The words didn't echo, they landed. She blinked like the overheads were too bright. A couple drifted past with throw pillows, and the world refused to turn this into a movie scene, which helped. She tried one more door. We could have fixed it, and I let the silence answer. Some doors stay locked because that's how you keep the house standing. I nodded once, wished her well without saying the words, and pushed my cart toward checkout. The climax wasn't cruelty. It was clarity on wheels, moving on. From the Target aisle, I pushed the cart forward and she followed one step, voice small. "Would counseling have helped if we'd done it earlier?" The question tried to rewrite time. I didn't raise mine. "Would truth have helped if you told it before you cheated?" The store noise filled the space, the beep of scanners, wheels on tile, while her face looked for an exit that wasn't there. That's the thing about the right question. It doesn't shout. It flips the room without moving a chair. She opened her mouth, then closed it, like she'd discovered there's no polite answer for a burned bridge. I didn't chase her silence or comfort it. I let it do its work. Socrates didn't win with volume. He won with direction. And the power moved, not because I took it, but because she set it down when the logic arrived. I nodded once, not unkind, and steered the cart away. The climax wasn't a slam. It was a clean reversal that left the truth standing. In the parking lot, the evening had that slow Texas glow, as if the sky was cooling a long day. I loaded the bags, turned the key, and rolled the windows down just enough to let the air tell me the weather. The radio found a soft guitar line, something you don't have to know the words to for it to work. I hit the first green light and let the truck idle into its lane like it remembered the route better than I did. Houses slid by, flags on porches, sprinklers catching sunset, a kid chasing a soccer ball across a lawn. When wind and music agree, you can hear your own pulse again. I felt my jaw unclench, the kind of quiet that starts behind your ribs and moves outward. No big moment, no speech, just a small smile that I didn't have to earn with effort. That was the climax. Peace that doesn't demand attention. It just arrives, sits beside you, and rides the rest of the way home. Back at the house, a voicemail waited. Mom's voice, soft and certain. "I'm proud of you." No advice, no theology, just those 5 words set where a man keeps his courage. I saved it, named it, and put the phone face down like you do with things that matter. The kitchen lights clicked off, leaving that warm square from the porch to spill across the floor. I stepped outside and stood in it, hands in my pockets, listening to crickets file their reports. The neighborhood breathed like one big animal, distant TV glow, a screen door, someone's laugh carried thin on the air. I didn't think about court or comments or who was checking whose feed. I thought about fences that don't sag when you lean on them, about promises you keep to yourself when nobody's filming. Respect isn't a trophy, it's a job. You do it daily or you don't. I looked out at the quiet street and let the line ring true. Respect isn't given, it's maintained. Here's what this road taught me. Safety isn't control, it's clarity. Trust isn't blind, it's verified. And boundaries aren't punishments. They're guardrails that keep good people from going over bad edges. I didn't win by yelling. I won by refusing to play the same scene twice. Silence and strategy beat anger. Silence gave me space to see. Strategy gave me steps to take. If you're standing where I stood, heart racing, facts assembling, remember this. You don't have to match chaos with noise. Match it with order. Match it with proof. Match it with a plan that respects you. Because the truth isn't complicated, it's consistent. And the line I carry into every morning is the simplest one of all. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. If this story hit home, drop a comment with strategy so I know you're building your own guardrails. Hit subscribe and stick with me. The next story starts where this one ends, at the place where peace and strength shake hands.